like to ask the kids to come up because I have something I want to talk to you guys about, and then I have something for you. Could I have all the kiddos come up here? Awesome, thank you. Hi, guys. Hi. Got lots of kids today. Madeline, you want to come over here too? Yeah. So I have a question for you guys. It's sort of a sad question for a happy day, because we know Easter's a really happy day. Yeah, you guys want to we can kind of get out of the way. I think we're okay. My question is if you've ever known anybody, and it could be somebody in your family or even a pet that's died. Have you known somebody that's died? Yeah. Yeah, a lot of us have had that experience by the time we're a little bit bigger like you guys. And what happens when somebody dies? A lot of times we'll have a service sometimes. We go to church and say prayers, and then usually the person or even our pet, we might bury them, right? And what happens after that? Sometimes people like to go. I don't know if you've ever gone to visit where somebody's been buried, where somebody's died. Have you ever done that? Gone to a cemetery? Yeah, and sometimes, what do people take sometimes when they go to cemeteries? Sometimes they take like a flower or like a pretty rock or something special. Yeah. So I wanted to think about that with you because that's actually where the Easter story starts. Mary Magdalene, who was one of Jesus's best friends and one of his closest followers, Jesus had died on the cross, like we know, and she went to visit him. She went to visit the tomb, the place where he was buried. And in those days, they didn't bury people in the ground. They put them into caves, and they sealed the cave. They closed the cave with a big, big rock. So Mary got there, and you guys know what she found, right? What did she discover when she got there? Go ahead, yeah, just tell me. Would she find what she was expecting to find? Not exactly, right? It was open. Actually, it was really open. And was Jesus's body in the cave, in the tomb? It wasn't there. So now she went from being sad to being really confused and sad and probably kind of scared. But then something really special happened for Mary. Something that doesn't happen for most of us in quite the same way. Mary got to see Jesus again. She got to talk to him face to face, right? And she was so happy, but Jesus gave her a job to do. And the job was, do you know what the job was? Did you hear? Her job was to go and tell the rest of Jesus's friends that he was alive. And she really, I think, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think she wanted to just give him a big old hug and hold on to him, right? Because she got him back. And Jesus said, you can't hold on to me. You got to go and tell everybody. And you got to live this new life. Because you see, there's this mystery. There's life, right? And then there's death. But then there's more life. So in a little while, right here, and Anson and Evangeline already know about this, we're going to pour some water, and we're going to baptize Anson and Evangeline into this mystery. And those of you that have been baptized, we're all baptized into this mystery that everything dies, but somehow out of every kind of death, God brings new life. And then that's our job, is to share that good news. So I have something for you guys today. Deacon Diana has some, and I have some over here. I want to show you what they are before we start passing them out. And anybody that didn't come up before but wants to come get a goodie should come get it. So there's something in these bags. You can have a goodie, but I got to give it to the kids first. Okay, do you guys see this? Do you know what this is? Anybody recognize it? It kind of looks like a nut. It's a kind of a seed called a bulb. So inside of this little hard, dead-looking thing is actually a whole plant. If you plant it in the ground and water it, it'll grow into a plant, and it'll make beautiful flowers. This is a tulip, right? This is a spring bulb. And what I have in your bag is a summer or fall bulb. So if you plant it now, have your grown-up help you plant it and water it over the summer, and in the fall, this little thing that looks so dead and dried up, like it couldn't have any life in it, it will give a beautiful flower. So I want you to do that, to remember this mystery that we're all a part of life and death and new life. And then the second part was what we have a job, right? So your job is to take the beautiful tulip that's already a flower and give it to someone as a symbol of that new life. Can you do that, do you think? Give you a lot to do today. Okay, thank you guys. Can you guys help me pass these out? You want a pink one? There you go, sweetie, yeah. There you go. Yeah, just grab them. Yeah, there's enough for everybody. There you go, sweetie. Yeah, I'm going to pass one back for Jasper and Amelie. Everybody got one? Yeah. There you guys go. Thank you. Yep, there's a few more. You didn't get one yet, buddy? There you go. Thanks for waiting so patiently. All right. Oh, for Madeline, of course. Yep, we have a few leftovers. Ken, you got one. I got you covered. I have no cause to linger beside this place of death. No reason to keep vigil where life has left. And yet I cannot go. Cannot bring myself to cleave myself from here. Can only pray that this waiting might yet be a blessing. And this grieving, yet a blessing. And this stone, yet a blessing. And this silence, yet a blessing. Still. While it was still dark, while it was still night, while she could not see, while she thought that death held sway, while she grieved, while she wept, while it was still dark, resurrection began. 2 poems by Jan Richardson. Every Easter, as I prepare for Easter morning, I look at the gospel again, the Easter story, and I try to find something new, some different detail that catches my attention, some new way that the resurrection can open up for me so that I can share it in a way that's fresh. And this year, what caught my attention, as in years before, is Mary Magdalene. I mean, she's the star of Easter morning. Even the most skeptical scholars agree that Mary had something to do with this Easter morning experience. You see, because in the first century, women were not allowed to testify in court. Their testimony was invalid, completely worth nothing. And so if the early Christians were trying to make up a story that was credible, they would not have had women be the witnesses to the resurrection. And Mary Magdalene is present in all 4 of the gospel accounts at the empty tomb. And here we have her in the most dramatic, most vivid, most beautiful, rich colors of the Gospel of John this morning. And what we're witnessing truly is Mary's resurrection. You see, because Mary stayed. Mary stayed. In the midst of grief, in the midst of fear, in the midst of confusion and trauma and terror that must have been almost insurmountable, Mary stayed present with those emotions that threatened to overwhelm her, and present with the reality in front of her. Author and researcher, sociologist Brené Brown, who also happens to be an Episcopalian, we proudly claim her, she has written that, I think it's a human tendency to run away from difficult emotions, but we sort of have perfected it in our culture. That we run away from grief, particularly from fear. We have all kinds of ways of distracting ourselves, of glossing it over, of saying, you sort of buck up and move on. and of even sort of acting it out in negative ways, maybe upon others. But Mary doesn't do any of these things. The men run, right, again, and I know they get a bad rap, but I want to say they were probably the most likely next candidates for a cross. And, I understand that fear. But Mary stayed. Mary stayed. And what was remarkable to me about her staying was that not only did she not run from the difficult situation, from the fear, from the grief, but she also didn't allow herself to collapse into it. Right? I could have seen her easily sort of collapsing into a puddle there in the garden in front of the empty tomb, right? And just allowing these emotions to wash over her. But Mary continued to do what is considered the heart of the contemplative life, to take a long, loving look at the real. Through her tears, Mary looked again into the empty tomb. And she saw what the others didn't see. And we have to wonder, were the angels there all along and the others just didn't have the eyes to see them? Did they suddenly appear when the men left? Mary saw something new. And this is important to us. This is important today because a lot of people today are experiencing a lot of difficult emotions, right? We're wrestling with what is in front of us. We are feeling grief. We are feeling fear. We are feeling anger. We are feeling disturbed, right? And it's easy to want to hide from those emotions, just to shut it off, and it's easy to want to be carried away by those emotions. But what Mary did when she stayed, was she looked directly at what was real, present with what was real inside of her. And she saw something new. She began to perceive the very reality around her at a different level. She began to vibrate with the spiritual level of reality that is present always and everywhere around us. And so she heard what the angel said to her. And this is one thing I love about this detailed portrait of Mary's resurrection, is we see that it didn't just happen in one flip of the switch, right? We have this beautiful service every year that we did it last night at St. Mary's in Napa because we share it and go back and forth. It's called the Great Vigil of Easter. And it begins where Easter really has to begin, which is in the darkness. And there's this moment partway through the service where we proclaim the resurrection, the beautiful words that Bishop Allen started with, Alleluia, Christ is risen, the Lord is risen indeed. The lights come on, the bells start ringing, the organ fanfare. And every year during the rehearsal, I want to get it just right. And so I say, okay, now you do this, and you do this, and you do that, and it's all going to happen this year, just all at one time, and it never does. It's always like, okay, we got there. Christ is risen. But that's how resurrection really is. That's how resurrection really is. It happens by fits and starts in us. We get a glimpse of it. We get a hold of it. We lose it again. We have to remember. And so I love this back and forth that we find with Mary, with the angels, with Jesus. They ask her what she's looking for. Who she's looking for. She tells them what she's looking for. Right? She's looking for a corpse. And they keep asking her, right? And she keeps not quite getting it. But she's sensing something, because why else would you turn away from a cave full of angels unless you could sense something more powerful behind you? Mary turns, right? And she sees Jesus. But she doesn't know that it's Jesus until, this is the detail I especially want my kids to pay attention to, until Jesus says her what? Her name. That's right. So you guys who spent time in the atrium upstairs with our catechesis of the Good Shepherd, you know that the Good Shepherd, he doesn't just call, hey, sheepy, 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 right? That's not how he calls a sheep. How does he call a sheep? By name. He says, Anson, follow me. Evangeline, follow me. Danny, JJ, follow me, right? He calls us by name. And it's in that moment that Mary hears her name that the resurrection happens in her heart. Now, every Easter, I feel like it's my job to kind of pierce through the bunnies and the bonnets and the baskets with a resurrection joy and like somehow like bust through all that, right? And convince you that it's real. But it occurred to me this year, I don't have to do that because you already know. You know new life. You know joy. And so I'm going to invite you right now, if you're comfortable with it, to close your eyes and go into a space in your heart and your mind and try to recall a time when you felt joy. As one of our hymns calls it, blazing joy. When have you felt blazing joy in your life? Might have been recently, might have been back when you were a little child. Hold on to that experience of joy, and then think about what was happening right before it. And I know for me, when I thought about this, a lot of times it was something difficult. Right? It was a loss or an illness or a tragedy, something that I couldn't see a way out of, and all of a sudden there was a way. Easter begins in the darkness, and resurrection happens in our hearts. But we have to be willing to stay with what is dark, with what is difficult, with what is frightening, what causes us grief. We have to be willing to wait for the resurrection. Now, like I told the kids, Mary didn't just kind of have this resurrection experience and go on and live her life and it was all great. No, like she had a job to do. Mary is called the apostle to the apostles, right? Think about that for the first century, to have an apostle to the apostles who was a woman, right? We were there right at the beginning, ladies. This is not a new thing. And Mary's job was to share that new life that she had found. And it's not about holding on to what it is, how we found it, and the way that we found it. I'm going to get the chance with my oldest child to travel to Italy this summer with their choir, and I've been looking up, all the amazing places you can go in Rome, the beautiful sanctuaries and basilicas, and almost all of them, it's like, well, St. Peter died here, and St. Peter's buried here, and this is where it actually happened, and St. Paul is over here, and this is where it happened, and they even have like pieces of the true cross over here, and pieces of the steps of the where Jesus was judged over here. But you know what they don't have, and they don't have it even in the Holy Land, is a place where you can go and visit Jesus's body, right? Because the tomb is empty, and the fact that the tomb is empty means that the place where we visit Jesus, the place where we honor Jesus, is everywhere, right? But Jesus rose again to bring new life, not just to himself, but to every person, and in fact, all of creation. And Peter says in Acts, I understand that God shows no partiality. This is for everyone. This new life that God is achieving, that God is accomplishing, that God has begun in Jesus and in each of our hearts is for everyone. It's for all of creation. One of our intercessors even prayed this morning for our four-legged friends and our winged friends. Right? It's all of creation that God is making new. We don't want to hold on to a monument, right? Even if that monument is as beautiful as Grace Church, right? What we want to do is we want to use the church as a fueling station. Come back, get filled up. It's like a restaurant or a gas station. You get filled up and you go on out to continue living that resurrection life, to continue to finding that new life in your heart, continue pointing out to others like an Easter egg hunt. There's new life over there. There's new life over there. There's new life over here. Why do you think we hunt for tiny little symbols of life on Easter? In just a moment, we're going to baptize Evangeline and Anson into that new life. And what I want you to know, and what I want all of us to know, is this is a life that cannot be taken away. And the invitation on Easter is to actually live that life that cannot be taken away, beginning now. Mary stayed. I invite you to stay as well. I said these things to you in the name of our friend and Savior Jesus the Christ. Amen.